This video is sponsored by Skillshare. The coronavirus has taken an exacting toll in the last few months. Over 1.5 million confirmed cases with 83,000 deaths and counting. Italy and Spain have been decimated by the virus, halting all non-essential activity. Cafes abandoned. Town squares empty. But the hardest hit country by far has been the United States. With over 400,000 cases and rising, the US represents ground zero for the corona crisis. But the rapid rise in US cases is not some fluke or bad luck. It's the result of an administration hell-bent on downsizing its capabilities, a privatized and underfunded healthcare system, and a country that prides itself on states and individual freedoms over collective unity. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Those issues have been reported on thoroughly in recent weeks. So to avoid repeating that journalism, I'm going to investigate one issue that has flown under the radar with the rise of the coronavirus: the environment. Well, more specifically, the Trump administration's use of COVID-19 both as an excuse and distraction to deregulate essential environmental protections. So today we're going to look at the coronavirus with a pointed question. How has Trump used the coronavirus to his advantage? To understand what the Trump administration is doing now, we must first look back at what they've already done. While this administration is responsible for many violent policies like putting children in cages at the border and barring asylum seekers, for brevity's sake, we are going to narrow in on their environmental actions. According to the New York Times, which drew upon the research of Columbia and Harvard's law schools, the Trump administration rolled back 95 federal environmental regulations. Of those 95, 58 have been successfully rolled back and 37 are still in the process of getting eliminated. These rollbacks include repealing the Clean Power Plan, which would have lowered emissions in the US power sector by 32% by 2030, or failing to ban the use of chlorpyrifos on farms, which has been connected to brain damage for farm workers. These large cuts to environmental regulations over the last 3.5 years spell devastating consequences not only for climate action, but also for air quality and community health. Like in Texas, where according to one study, an EPA reversal of a policy requiring retrofits of power plants with sulfur dioxide scrubbers could lead to premature deaths of 180 people in Texas and the surrounding area. The point here is this. Since Trump has become the president, there's been a steady stream of delays and rollbacks surrounding environmental regulation that allow for indiscriminate pollution and harmful environmental inaction. And now, here we are in the heart of a global pandemic, with an administration blundering around claiming we have tests that just aren't there.
But we've done more testing and had more results than any country anywhere in the world. They're doing an incredible job.
And attacking journalists asking needed questions.
What do you say to Americans who are watching you right now who are scared?
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say.
Behind the bluster of the daily press conferences, Trump still continues to attack environmental regulations. With the specter of COVID-19 occupying everyone's mental space, the White House has used the pandemic in two ways: as a distraction and as an excuse. The coronavirus has played into the hands of an administration that, as Steve Bannon puts it, wants to fast-track the destruction of the administrative state. With the virus on every screen and media conglomerate, the EPA, among other departments, has pushed forward with a surge of environmental deregulation proposals. On March 18th, the EPA put forth a proposal broadening a previous rule that would require peer-reviewed studies focusing on everything from air quality to epidemiology to release confidential public health information in order to be considered by the EPA. This has produced a large backlash from the science community because, in the words of Andrew Rosenberg, director of the Center for Science and Democracy at the Union of Concerned Scientists, that data can never be public. No one is going to want their test results publicly available. Essentially, the quote-unquote transparency that this proposal seeks means that researchers will be hard-pressed to find willing subjects, which inevitably means hindering essential scientific studies like the effects of air pollution on a community. On top of that, the Trump administration announced a proposal to gut the landmark Obama-era fuel efficiency standards. These standards would have reduced the emissions from cars and light trucks by half and saved Americans $1.7 trillion in fuel costs. Instead, amid the chaos of the coronavirus, the Trump administration proposed a fuel economy change that would result in almost 1 billion more tons of greenhouse gases emitted over the next 5 years. These are drastic actions, and despite public opposition to these changes, the administration is barreling through with them in a time where protests, public comment periods, and court litigation is much harder to carry out. As David Hayes, director of the State Energy and Environmental Impact Center at the New York University School of Law explains, the administration is essentially taking advantage of the fact that the public is distracted and in fact disabled from fully engaging against this ideological push. Alongside using the coronavirus as a distraction, the Trump administration has, for certain deregulation efforts, also used COVID-19 as an excuse to dismantle environmental safeguards. At the top of this list comes the EPA's announcement on March 26th to allow companies to essentially regulate themselves while the coronavirus wreaks havoc throughout the United States. In addition, the EPA is ceasing to issue fines for violations of certain air, water, and hazardous waste reporting requirements for the duration of the coronavirus crisis, to supposedly ease the burden on oil and gas companies. Essentially, pollution industries get a free pass during this pandemic, while communities surrounding refineries and chemical plants have to live in their smog, which, incidentally, makes the effects of coronavirus more deadly. Susan Bodine, Assistant Administrator for the EPA Compliance Office, says this is due to the need for essential personnel and resources at polluting sites to be devoted to maintaining production, rather than having to focus on compliance as well. But Eric Schaefer, Executive Director of the Environmental Integrity Project, points out the flaw in this argument in an article from The Intercept. If everyone's at work refining oil and making chemicals, and it's just your compliance staff that has been coronavirused out, then they'll need to explain that. All these actions have consequences, not only for the environment, but for people. Environmental deregulation is intertwining with and exacerbating the coronavirus in real time. A recently published study from Harvard University found that just a small increase in long-term exposure to pollution leads to a large increase in the COVID-19 death rate. According to the study, if New York County reduced its pollution particulate matter by just 1 count, they could have seen 248 fewer deaths by April 4th. That is a staggering finding, and is due to the way in which the coronavirus and air pollution both shut down lung capacity. The conclusion of the report stands in stark contrast to Trump's actions. The authors stress, quote, the importance of continuing to enforce existing air pollution regulations to protect human health both during and after the COVID-19 crisis. Sadly, Trump and his administration are doing the exact opposite. But this isn't unusual for the US. This is the American shock doctrine at work. In the words of Naomi Klein, who coined the term,
the shock doctrine is the political tactic of using states of crisis, states of emergency, to push through a series of pro-corporate policies that leave us more divided, less protected.
From the reconstruction of Iraq to the rubble of Katrina, the United States government has a history of using disasters as a way to shock the public into pro-corporate neoliberal ideas. The Trump administration's use of this crisis to deregulate the oil, gas, and chemical industries is right out of the shock doctrine handbook. Klein goes on to say,
whatever fossil fuel companies were after before this crisis set in, they have just been checking off the wish list.
In short, as we reel from the shock of COVID-19, large industries can roll out their pre-prepared plans for expanded profits and decreased regulations, which ultimately mean more harm to people, more pollution, and a hotter planet. But the crisis we face can go both ways. Yes, the Trump administration is seizing this as an opportunity to contract much-needed policies and regulation, but it also presents an opportunity to swing the other way towards justice. And in that sense, there is hope, a silver lining to this terrible pandemic. What seemed for many like radical solutions to national issues now feel like the bare minimum for keeping people alive during this pandemic. Universal healthcare, a Green New Deal, and guaranteed jobs. All of these proposals could have mitigated some of the harm COVID-19 has already caused in the United States. And on a more local level, the coronavirus is showing us a social solidarity we often don't experience in daily life. The logic goes that if you don't get sick, I won't get sick, and therefore we are learning to trust each other to do the right thing. We are interdependent. Community care and mutual aid groups are coalescing to take care of the most vulnerable people in communities by sharing excess food and checking in on elders. This is the collective mindset that helps us realize that the solution to our environmental problems is us, working together to forge a path that means environmental and social justice built from the rubble of this worldwide disaster. When I started making YouTube videos, my motion graphic skills were terrible. I had to teach myself basically everything and it took forever. Luckily, you don't have to go through that, because now you can learn about animation and video editing all in one place, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of classes covering topics like motion graphic design, video creation, and much, much more. Skillshare has been an essential way for me to develop my motion graphic skills in order to create more engaging and informational videos. I especially love Evan from Polymatter's class on YouTube video essays, which explains how to produce a video like mine from start to finish. If you're at all interested in making animated explainer videos, I'd highly recommend it. Above all else though, Skillshare is affordable. When you join their annual premium membership, you'll have unlimited access to high-quality classes for under $10 a month. So join the community of creators and learners on Skillshare today with a special offer. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 2-month free trial of premium membership. Hey everyone, Charlie here. If you're interested in supporting the videos I make for this channel, there are 2 things you can do. First, consider backing me on Patreon. Even $1 a month goes a long way to helping me out. And second, share this video around on Reddit, Facebook, or whatever social media platform you use. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.